wave is building. The number of dead is going up. The number of critically injured, critically ill people is going up. And the governor said that under almost any scenario, the hospital system in the state of New York will be overwhelmed. And we are already seeing that at one hospital in Queens.
Queens in New York is the worst infected district in what is now the world's worst infected city. And the doctors and nurses don't know what's hit them.
How is it?
Hell. Biblical. I kid you not. People come in, they get intubated, they die, the cycle repeats.
You overwhelmed?
Yeah, the system's overwhelmed, all over the place. My daughter's an intern in Brooklyn, first-year resident. She starts the ICU today. I couldn't sleep last night. It's scary.
They are overrun in this hospital, so stretched that an area of the waiting room has been screened off to make a temporary ward. In an internal email, the chief medical officer told staff it was the humanitarian mission of their lifetime.
I'm Lilian Espinosa. I am a palliative care social worker.
My name is Kathleen. I'm the administrative manager here at Mount Sinai Doctors, Astoria.
Steve Casapitas. I'm a pulmonary critical care doctor.
My name is Eric Peterson. I'm a nurse in the emergency department.
My name is Grace, and I'm a registered nurse. I work on 3 East.
Hi everybody, my name is Mindy Worth. I am a nurse manager here at Mount Sinai, Queens.
Role prior to COVID, and how did it change during COVID, if it did?
It didn't really change. I mean, we changed. You know, we were forced to change. We were all still doing everything we do, the same assessments that we do. The volume increased radically and drastically, and, you know, caring for the patients changed. Just in terms of, there was only so much we could do. We had to give the medicines, we had to give the breathing treatments, and then after that, it's just kind of become almost like a patient cheerleader, like keep going, you can do this, you gotta understand that this is what you have to do. You gotta breathe, you gotta just keep breathing. And some did, some didn't.
You know, it was just a real big mess, I think, for everyone, and especially for like me and my coworkers, like the nurses, like, and the PAs and the aides. Like, it was a lot to deal with. And, you know, my coworkers were getting sick left and right. It's like, oh my gosh, I was just in the break room with them. Am I gonna get sick? And like, oh gosh, like my own life, I'm like wondering like what's gonna happen. Am I gonna be okay to wake up the next day? You know, it's just like constant fight or flight mode. So
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
I have to just say that we are a very small team in the palliative care team at Mount Sinai, Queens. We are a social worker, which is me, a nurse practitioner, and a doctor. So that's our team. And mostly we will see maybe on an average 50 to 60 patients. 70 is pushing it because it's only a small team. But during the pandemic, we saw about 400 patients. In 2 months. In 2 months, like 200 plus patients actually in just 1 month, and that was a tremendous impact on all of us, of course.
Right, so.
People were dying, and it felt sort of like a tsunami that came, and the tsunami brought many other waves that every single day it felt that we left, maybe we were having 40, 50 patients a day, and then half of our list will die. And then the next day we will go through the same thing, and then the following day, again, half of our list will pass away. We use our phones to do FaceTime so that the patients can see their loved ones can see their patients. They can hear at least the voice of their patients, and to try to reorient them, and so that both the patients can be comforted and also the families can be comforted that they're okay, or that we are taking care of them, and also to many times say goodbye. That was the hardest. We used technology for for the goodbye.
My daughter was an intern during COVID in the ICU. She got COVID. Thank God she recovered and she's fine. But come on. So this is what I tell everybody. If you weren't in the hospital, you have no idea what we went through. None whatsoever. And we can't describe it enough to tell you what it was like. I can give 1,000 interviews. No one will understand. You know, no one will understand. And like I said in an interview, you know, comparing this to 9/11, no comparison. We were at 9/11, there was a whole bunch of us outside on 30th Avenue. We were just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Nothing. Here, it was just wave after wave after wave. And it didn't stop.
It's an administrative role. I oversee like my administrative staff here. Or during COVID, I got deployed into the emergency room for about 3 to 4 months. And there it started off with checking oxygen tanks throughout the emergency room because everybody was just short-staffed or busy.
How did you then get any training to kind of go over? And
we got training for like the first, someone basically like did I want to say like a huddle before our first shift working in the emergency room, and that was so scary for us. We came in like regular clothing. None of us are clinical, so we didn't have scrubs or anything. And I remember like the housekeeping team, who we don't really know either. I just remember them like seeing us kind of like probably like a deer in headlights, and like they brought us clothes. They told us like, don't wear your own clothes, like here are scrubs, you can always come get these before your shift. I actually started connecting patients and their family via video. So I did that for most of my time in the emergency room. And they're so scared and alone. So I guess knowing that like you could be comforting to someone else is what really helped me.
Queens is where Donald Trump grew up. He's repeatedly described this health crisis as a war. Well, now his hometown is on the front line.
everybody said deployed. Is that a term that's usually used in a hospital, or is that kind of a COVID-esque?
I had never heard of the term. I don't know if anyone else had, but so much
military,
right? And that's kind of what COVID felt like for us, I want to say.
I trained at Kings County, where we wear that as a badge of honor, where we think we've seen everything. Nothing like this. Nothing like this. It's a war that you never expected, and you're fighting an enemy that you can't see. And in the beginning, we were fighting an enemy that we knew nothing about. So when the patients would come in, we would do the usual stuff to try and help them, and then they would all crash, and they would crash and burn. And then we were trying to figure out, what were we doing wrong? What weren't we doing? Were we intubating people? Was that wrong? Were we dialyzing people? Was that wrong? And I was in communication with pulmonary critical care docs all across the country, and nobody knew. Nobody.
It could never be like the military. It could never be like war. War is something that we in the United States never experience in their own land. War is somewhere else. You go home, you hear it in the news, somebody else is dealing with it. Even if you are in a country that there is war, it's somewhere else. You're not dealing it day and night, and also at your home. Because we were isolated at home, we were dealing with children at our homes, we were dealing with our own illness. My story begins with the fact that I got sick first.
Wow.
The day before the world, the United States declared this a pandemic, I got sick. And I didn't know, I fear for my life. I fear for my life, I fear what's gonna happen to me, what's gonna happen to my children. So the war is outside, and it doesn't really come to your house every single day. But in this case, we had to deal with it at every single level, at a personal level, at a professional level, at a societal level, at a country level, as a world level. So, yes.
It was my biggest concern that I would have a brand new nurse with multiple concurrent codes happening all at the same time. So the biggest thing that I could do, or the only thing that I could think to do is just to teach the staff just basic MCI training.
Which is?
MCI training is mass casualty incident training, and this is like just basic battlefield triage, right? So I told the staff that, you're gonna code your patients, not on paper, not in a chart or anything like that, but just in your mind. You're gonna have green, those patients are fine. They're gonna go home, they're stable, don't worry about it. Yellow, you might have a little issue. Red is your critical patient, that's who you're looking at. And then black, don't worry about it, but because they're going to pass. So these are just there's nothing you could do, right? It's futile, right? So that's what we had to do, And then futile, by futile, I mean they'd have been deemed already a DNR, DNI, or they did not want to be intubated. And so on and so forth. A lot of crash carts used during the COVID. Okay, a lot of serial intubations, really. So the chaotic, multiple codes concurrently occurring at the same time, that's not really the way that it happened. It was more of like a silent serial intubation. Towards the end, it was just, we'll do him first, and then that patient, and then later on that one over there. And that's exactly how it went, very casual,
When was your moment of realization, that this is crazy, this is
This one's easy, because it was when I had been in the critical care room all day and essentially kept this man alive for 12 hours. And we finally got a room for him upstairs, and I took him to the PACU, which is the post-surgical unit. And it's normally kind of hustly and bustly up there. It was dead quiet, and all you could hear was the respirators. And when you looked around, everybody was in kind of the same position, and it still haunts me to this day, this image of everybody being on the respirators. Kind of like if you remember the old movie Coma, when everybody was hanging, that's what it reminded me of. And it's just, I've never been able to shake that sight. That's my probably emotional scar. That was the day.
I remember I was off for a few days, and then I had come back to the unit, and it just felt like Stranger Things, like when they're in that, what is it called? That space where it's just like black and white, and everyth's standing still, and you just see feathers and speckles in the air. That's how it felt like to me. Walking through the halls, the halls that I've been walking through for forever during my career as a nurse, and it's all changed. All the doors are shut, and we have tape everywhere, and they made us reuse our PPE, so we had brown paper bags taped everywhere, and yeah, it was a lot. And I remember I was charge nurse that day, so my manager Anthony was just telling me yeah, all the patients are now COVID, all the rooms are COVID patients. So I was like, okay.
So how many days have you been off since that first patient?
I was off for maybe 3-4 days.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and then I come back and it was all different, turned upside down. Oh, the upside down.
Come in every day and deal with the disasters that awaited us. I remember one day, the worst day, we had 12 people expire in a 12-hour shift. It was just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And we were running around like chickens without a head.
I mean, if I think back to the patients being ventilated, that was another scary and traumatizing thing for me. There was this one time where I had to give the propofol to one of my patients, and he was from a jail, so he was handcuffed to the bed. He had 2 police officers outside of the room, and he was my patient, and he was desaturating, so his oxygen levels were going down. I mean, he had COVID. So they decided to ventilate him, but she ventilated him, left the room. I was in there with the patient, and there was not enough propofol. The actual bottle wasn't even here, so I was just in the room with the patient. and like he like wakes up with the tube down his throat and his eyes is like wide open, just staring right at my face. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like I called my coworker, she came and helped me, and the patient kept waking up. And then like finally, once we have like room upstairs in the designated ICUs, we'll bring the patients upstairs with like all this equipment, like the ventilators, the bed, and the suctioning, like whatever else needed to go up, like we would all have to do it. It was like me and the respiratory therapist, and I remember just like being drenched in sweat, and yeah, it was a lot.
We would see patients, let's say in the morning, and I want to say they looked good, and then by the afternoon you would see they were already like on oxygen, and it was just everything was happening so fast that I don't think there's like a way to describe it. In one shift at some point we saw like 4 people pass away, and we would see like security come and get their bodies. And also there was one point that probably like impacted me, and this was just because, you know, my dad passed away, I guess, a year before COVID, and then my last memory of him was him being intubated, and I'll never forget, that was all I saw during COVID, but that didn't really get me. It was more like one day that a daughter came to pick up her dad's belongings, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, I can't imagine like dropping my dad off in this outfit and I'm like getting it back in a bag, or like seeing his phone or his glasses. So, you know, it was more like those like human connection moments that really did it for me, not so much seeing like everything that we saw.
Roughly half the confirmed cases of COVID-19 in America are now in the state of New York. An estimated 12% of the latest illnesses have required hospitalization, but the impact is devastating. Supplies are out or running out, and time is up.
So throughout COVID experience, we've had numerous supply chain issues, just, you know, because everybody wants the same things, you know, all the PPE, all the masks, you know, we had different vendors. You get tested for one mask, you know, from one vendor, and then you need to get tested for another mask because we don't have the supply anymore, right? So among other things, even the body bags, you know, we had to go through several different iterations just because the supply wasn't there. So we had a proper white kit that come with a shroud and a bag at one point, and then we didn't have that anymore. Then another cheaper material bag came and we used that, but then they didn't make those anymore. And then they had a different products. And then at one point there was this black tarp product that was the only supply vendor that we could find. And the staff was very upset at this point because now when they're wrapping the body, they feel this is like a garbage bag, you know, it's like so it really affected the staff, and we had to take it back to materials. And we did get a newer product, but it just really hit everybody.
Talking about COVID is very upsetting for me because I lost my mentor, I lost my best friend, we lost so many people here. But for me especially, it was gut-wrenching. My best friend who passed away was a senior physician at Downstate. And we tried everything. We tried everything. And then finally we transferred him to another institution to give him ECMO, which is a special way to oxygenate the blood. He didn't make it through the doors. So it's, you know, it's gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. And it was just horrible. It was horrible. I took care of a lot of patients I've been taking care of 15, 20 years. And there was nothing I could do. Nothing. I mean, when we had the tractor trailers outside, we had 3 of them.
The death toll in New York City continuing to climb. Over 1,000 people have lost their life. The virus having a huge impact on our first responders.
How do you keep motivated?
Yeah, I think that the important thing is having, for me, has been to debrief. I had to debrief all the time with what I was feeling, because if not, it was going to be burnout and a lot of post-trauma. Just giving you a very quick example, I went to my office in the summer of 2020, and I started to just cry, and I didn't want to be in that office. I ran out. I tried to figure out from myself to have some insight what was happening. And after having a group discussion with some colleagues, we figure out that's where the room where I was telling everybody with my colleagues that your loved one will pass away. And there was that component of the reminder that the darkness, the coldness of April, May, and that was the bad delivery of the news.
I felt like it was kind of just like an autopilot time for me. It honestly didn't hit me until like 2 months later, where I do remember nights where I like maybe would bring that home and, you know, just like break down, and I didn't know if it was like exhaustion or just like we were seeing so much.
While you're in it, you're not thinking of it. Well, for me, while I'm in it, I'm in it. I got to do this, and this. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Then you go home, you crash, you burn, you sleep for a couple of hours maybe, wake up in the morning, play some rock and roll, and trying to get, and that's what I would do. I'd play the Rolling Stones every day, and I'd come to the hospital, Rolling Stones, ACDC, you know, I'd come to the hospital and, you know, ding, ding, round one all over again.
There were numerous times like I would just go home and just let it all out right there. And I think that helped too, of being able to maintain it for a year and to still be able to come in here and, you know, try to make people still smile given what they're going through.
You really get to learn a lot about yourself, you know, and find that, you know, you really do have this really amazing store of resilience, and it's just right place and right time. And not everybody gets to have that level of commanding sense of purpose, you know.
Like, I have to say I'm proud of myself, because I was really an advocate for my patients and my coworkers. Like, I feel like I was meant to be a nurse for this.
You did, like, above and beyond, you know?
Yeah.
And then when I'd go home at 7 o'clock and all the banging would start, I was like, I please don't want to hear this. People wanted to recognize us, but at the same time, you know, we're reliving it every day. You'd come out here at 7 o'clock and there'd be people lined up across the street. They'd be all clapping. In the beginning, it was packed. And then every day it would less and less and less. But that's the realities of life.
I remember, like, people were clapping outside of my window, and like I hear people saying, yeah, let's give it up to the people that are working and not us, you know. And I'm just like, I don't need this. Like, I'm like busting my ass at work. I don't need your applause. And then they put up like a big sign and do all of this and whatever. But I was like not happy. But I will say, like, one really great thing was like the support from the community. Like, we always got food donated, which was so nice. We got flowers donated, and it just made me feel good, you know. That was really nice.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that.
Another thing that really like kept me going, I think, was like the outpour of like love and support from our community. Not just Astoria, but I lived in Jackson Heights at the time during COVID. But like I would leave here at 7 and the firefighters and everyone would be clapping. We would get food sent to us every day. And I think like something as simple as food, like that would really help us, because, you know, it was like someone, and we didn't know who all the time, was taking care of us.
I think that COVID also, yes, it was sad, yes, it was traumatic, but yes, we saw the most beautiful things from people. People fed us, people took care of us, kids even sent cards, and so we saw humanity, and if anything, we saw the best of people as well.
I mean, I moved out when we found this out because my wife's very immunocompromised. So, and I had 2 children. So literally, like several of the doctors, I moved out. Fortunately, I had a great neighbor who said, look, we're going to the Poconos to our mountain house. You can have the apartment. So I was able to move out and still be an arm's reach away from my family. I would watch them on the iPad make dinner. And then, you know, my kids would come up and they'd drop the food off and would air hug, and then they'd go back. And then, like, so I was on the 6th floor and they're on the 2nd floor, but our buildings face each other. So, like, I would look out the window and wave, and they would wave up to me. And then the 7 o'clock thing started happening, so I could hear them yelling out, and they're yelling up to me, and I'm clapping, and I'm yelling down. I mean, I kind of laughed about it, because I said, this is so typical New York.
You've got to understand that you don't make the timeline. The virus makes the timeline.
Everybody thinks, oh, we're back to normal. Well, Delta's here. You know, Delta and then Gamma.
I think Lambda. I heard about a Lambda.
Yeah, there's a Lambda, there's a Gamma. They're saying an Epsilon. I mean, it's mutating. And that's what viruses do. And if you're not vaccinated, you know, you're just asking for trouble. I know in this country it's now become a political issue, but it's not. It's basic science, you know. It's basic science, and if you don't get vaccinated, you have a good chance of dying. I don't care if you're young, you're old, you're fat, you're skinny, you're an athlete, you're not an athlete.
Even if you think I'll just survive this, or I don't care if I die, what about the doctor who has to treat you?
Everybody cares. Everybody cares if they're going to die. I've been a critical care doctor for over 20 years. And when people are dying, even though they say, I don't care if I die, they don't want to die. They will say to you, please help me. And, you know, okay, you want to throw yourself at the zombie, go throw yourself at the zombie. I really don't care. But then what about me? What about my nurses? What about my aides? What about the house cleaners? What about the people from dietary, security? You know, the ones of us who are boots on the ground, what about us? Yeah, just pick us off one at a time because you don't want to get a vaccine.
What can the community do to support you guys?
You know, I thought about, this is the one thing I thought about, is get vaccinated. You know, please. You know, look, going back to it, I don't want you to have to lean out of your window at 7 and applaud me. Get vaccinated. You know, look, please, if I can beg anybody to do that for us. Because when that gets done, we can stop wearing 3 masks. We can, you know, breathe a little bit easier, knowing that it's going to be behind us. And it's going to still take a little bit of time, but we don't have to keep thinking, you know, what's the next variant going to be? Because the variants are getting stronger. As they're going for the stronger of our society, they're getting stronger. You know, it's not like the kids have got to meet the weakest part of the variant. No, they're going to meet the strongest now. You know, and I want that to stop. It takes on a completely different resonance when it's children. If you haven't done it yet because you think it was done too fast, it was done too fast because it was capable of being done fast. It was capable, for the first time, everybody put all their R&D into it. They focused on one thing. When you focus on one thing and not 10, one thing gets done 10 times faster.
Exactly.
You know, it's not like nobody cut corners, nobody did anything duplicitous. We just did this as fast as we could to get it behind us as quick as we could.
I think getting the word out that we're here to support the community. We are here we're one.
Yeah.
There's no you without us. We are one, and we should always work together as one.
I think we're just, I mean, especially here, I feel like we're so lucky. I don't know if it's an Astoria thing, but it just feels like a super like tight-knit community, and we get that love like all the time, honestly, even before COVID. Just so much appreciation for like our hospital being here in general, and like, it sounds so cliche, but like even saying you work for Mount Sinai, like, you know, people are like happy that you're there.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, by everyone, like, all we need is for people to do their part, and that's kind of how they can support us, honestly, so that we don't have to see like what we saw in March again.
So get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated. Wear your mask. Yeah. And that's how you can help us.